I'm Melissa Tossetti.
And I'm Kevin Gibbons.
And we have started our show just a few minutes early to give people a chance to log in. My intention was to be on and streaming 2 minutes ago, and I apologize that I was late, especially given that this is a conversation about time.
I think it's just your subtle way of emphasizing the importance of the subject.
Yes, I love that. That is exactly what it was. So actually, one of the things that we wanted to talk about in our pre-show that we have 2 minutes left is the 4th of July.
The 4th of July, yeah. And one of the nice things, as we were talking earlier, one of the nice things about the 4th of July holiday is that it's pretty much non-sectarian. All Americans can get behind it. And the other thing that I really like that you brought up is that it's one of the few holidays that really has a very low pressure for buying things. It's not like you need to buy presents or gifts or costumes or anything like that. You know, you buy a tri-tip and a bag of charcoal and you're good.
Right.
Or a pack of ground beef and charcoal and you're good. So you can really concentrate on celebrating with your family and friends, and it should be a relatively low stress holiday.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful weather and yeah.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, one of the things very similar to Halloween, while not everybody celebrates Halloween, it is one of those holidays where if somebody has a pumpkin on their porch and their porch light is on, you can, even if you don't know them, ring their doorbell and you say trick or treat. Well, my kid says trick or treat. And there's just this pleasant exchange, and I've always loved that community feeling that those two holidays have.
Yeah. The nice thing about, again, everybody goes out and celebrates this, and you can be pretty sure that you can say Happy 4th of July, and the vast majority of people are not going to be offended. You don't need to worry about it.
Despite the highs and lows of whatever political office is happening at any given time, going back for over 200 years.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the time to celebrate just all being part of one big group.
Yeah,
that's a nice thing.
Yeah, so we like the 4th.
Yeah.
That being said, it is now 3:00 and time for us to officially start this session on Caffeine TV. My name is Melissa Tossetti, and I am the founder of The Savvy Life, and this is...
I'm Kevin Gibbons, and I'm a vice president of The Savvy Life.
And if you have not joined us before, what The Savvy Life is that it's about creating a strong financial foundation while you enjoy the journey. And thank you for sharing the broadcast.
Thank you.
So it's just this idea of finding a balance between doing right by your future self, right, and enjoying life now just by being very purposeful. Okay. So as you could see from this exchange that we just did, the beauty of Caffeine TV is that you can interact with us. And you can ask questions, you can contribute to the conversation. We love that, and we encourage you to do that if you are watching us live. In order to do that, if you're just watching us through the stream, is to simply, and it's real time. Yes, it is real time. It's to simply just register with Caffeine TV. There should be a link right under where you're seeing us. Takes less than a minute.
Yep.
And you'll be able to interact.
Yep. And we appreciate the comments because it makes this thing much more interactive, and we like that a lot better than just talking to a little red dot on the computer screen.
Yep.
So.
Oh, and you must verify your email so if you do register, you have to verify your email. So you might want to check your spam folder if you don't see it right away. But outside of that, it's super easy. Yeah.
Yep.
So that being said, today's topic is about how very often we don't do the things that we need to do in order to get us toward our financial goals. And we use the excuse that we don't have time. We are in a crazy society that, I don't know if you want to expand on that at all.
Yeah, there are demands on everybody for you all the time. Everybody wants some of you. There's just, we'll go ahead and say there's distractions. There are inputs all around you that are craving your attention and competing for your attention. And that can be very distracting, and that can keep you from doing what you need to do by feeling that you must always be aiming and addressing all these different concerns.
Correct. And, while we work with folks to help them to create a spending plan, a big part of what we do is we help them teach them how to put that plan into play. And so we talk about and we work in human behavior
Yep.
all the time, which is one of the reasons why we're having this conversation. I know very few people that don't have something nagging at them that could potentially help them to save a little bit of money or a lot of money, but they just can't find the time in order to be able to do that. And I say that I'm a human.
And it's things as simple as, wow, I really should contact my insurance company and see if that ticket went up for my record and negotiate a better rate. Or, I really should contact my cable company and see if I can, my introductory offer expired and now's the time to go bug them and get another 1-year introductory offer or whatever they do. Yeah.
Right. Or we've talked in the past about, I have this storage unit and it's $300 a month, but it's easier to wince whenever I see that debit in my account than it is to go in and clean it out.
Yeah.
But we know that at the end of the year, that $300 storage unit could have been your trip to Europe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's why it's not just about saving money. It's about, wow, what else could you do with that money?
Yeah.
So one of the biggest distractors in this day and age that we have as far as our time goes is this thing right here. I worked for a company as an office manager a decade ago, a little longer than that, when BlackBerrys first came out.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And everybody was so excited because they would be able to check their email and they wouldn't have to log onto their computer at home, and it was going to save so much time. And somehow, some way, it all went bad.
Yeah, because they were checking their email every 15 seconds or every 5 minutes. Yeah.
Or their boss had them, it was
Yep.
almost like a
A
leash.
leash. Exactly.
So had them, and this expectation since then has learned to put it down. No, that's exactly it.
That's what the purpose of this presentation is.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's exactly it. So that's kind of how it started. And then from there, it became entertainment. So these started as communication tools for email. And then Genius Apple went out and basically created, look, I've got text from my stepmom. See how distracting that is? They created these little mini computers that we can access the entire world database at any given time. And so instead of perhaps knocking out a task, it's just so much more interesting to spend some time, blissing out on our phones, on the internet. So the question is, of the time that you are spending on your phone, on social media, this is a form of social media in itself, so we're very self-aware. How much time are you spending on that versus how much time would it actually take you to cancel a subscription or, whatever that might be.
Investigate new service or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, or just get. I mean, another concern is just getting your daily tasks done so that you're not working until 7:30, 8 or 9 o'clock at night because you didn't make good use of your time during the day, and then you're taking time away from your family. You're taking time away from dinner, so maybe you're either eating not well or not eating and preparing meals cost effectively. So that all kind of snowballs. It really just comes down to what is the best way to manage your time so that you're getting the things done that you need to do and that you're having the quality of life that you deserve.
I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but one of my favorite articles I have ever written, it's called Avoiding the 20-Year Sprint.
Mm-hmm.
And it is based on these little devices, or the fact that we have melded work and life. And so we're at work and we're doing family stuff, and we're at home and we're doing work stuff, and we don't have, no longer naturally are these time frames where this is when I do this project and this is when I do this, and everything is bleeding.
Yeah.
And it's a lesson that I learned the hard way a long time ago, and I fight myself. I try very hard to keep those parameters. I don't check my email after a certain time of the day or whatever that might be, but it's so easy to fall back into negative behaviors. But that being said, again, you have to have that structure. Otherwise, time just bleeds, and it's 20 years later, and you're wondering what happened. What oh my gosh, my kids are so tall.
Yeah.
Why we didn't go to Disney World? Why didn't we go to Disney World like we had planned? Well,
we didn't have the time, and why not? Because
didn't have time, didn't have the money, all of that. And it is so funny how, in so much of the work that we do, things can come back to a certain thread, a keystone habit or a keystone negative habit. Yeah.
So you bring up a good point. Kids are also need to learn that they're not required to answer everyone. You know what? I will go one better than you on that. A lot of the younger people that I know actually are very good about that. It's the older people that are tied to their devices and feel like they have to immediately respond. So I think that we can give some, I think that it's imperative that we do educate our children how to use these tools properly. But in my experience, it's the older people that I've seen that are really that really have a problem with that. And but the ultimate aim of what you're saying is absolutely true. Is that we all need to be aware that you do not have to have immediate gratification and immediate responses. This is related to a pet peeve of mine that goes back way before the computer age. I used to hate going into stores and be talking to a salesperson and the phone rings and they ignore me and answer the phone. So why in the heck is that unknown person with unknown demands, unknown opportunities, more important than me, the person standing in your store waiting to give you money? And
their wallet's not even here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that goes back to the same idea of you don't need to respond to all these urgent impulses immediately.
So we have a couple solutions, couple ideas for how to actually get over this and not just complain about it. But there's one other complaint that I have, one other pet peeve. So we have a couple of friends that are very much information junkies, self-professed information junkie. You are an information junkie.
I am.
And I've seen the photos circulate where it would be a photo from the 1930s and it's a line of people and they're all reading a newspaper.
Yeah.
And then you see a line of people modern day and they're all looking at their phones. And basically the comment is, well, they did it back then. There's nothing wrong with doing it now. I have a comment about that though. They finished reading their newspaper. This is endless. You could never, ever get through reading everything that is on here. It is. We talk about rabbit holes a lot. This is definitely a rabbit hole where I feel like back then there was a closing time. You checked out of work. Few exceptions, but there's no end. Everything just continues to bleed and it bleeds into other things, and that's why I feel like we don't feel that we have control over our time.
So how do we get around this issue of not having enough time to do what believing we don't have enough time to do what really we should get done while we're, I don't want to say wasting time because there is some value for downtime and turning your mind off, but certainly there are parameters to limit and properly control those.
Yeah.
So how do we solve this?
I think that what you do is you take your phone and you put it behind the tire of your car and then you put your car in reverse and then you just back and forth a couple of times. That is not it. And I will admit, I allow myself time to bliss out on my phone after a certain time, but I try to actually put parameters on that as well because otherwise I feel like I'm just in a tired loop. So I will self-confess to that. One of the first things is to create deadlines.
And abide by them.
And abide by them. So an example would be, let's say that it's something very simple. We had a client in Georgia who had a business and she had a phone line attached to that business, but had not used that phone line in 6 years. And it was just $15 a month, but it was $15 a month for 6 years, right? Mm-hmm. And it was the same thing she had told us. Every month it was just a little uncomfortable, right? Cumulatively, when you see that money, it can be very, very impactful. So she actually, as soon as we started working, she cut that. So she was way ahead of us. But one of the things that you can do is just create the deadline. Look, I can't take care of this right now, but before the next time I get billed, I'm going to take care of it. And it's got to go on your to-do list. And there should be repercussions of some sort outside of just the $15 because apparently that's not painful enough, right? And I hate working in ideas of pain because we're very much a carrot-oriented business, working towards something versus not trying to run away from a whip. But sometimes you've got to have some repercussion, or things don't get done.
Yeah. Or your deadline can be a carrot of some kind. When I do this, I get to go. I get to go do something else there. It's a lot of money. So it can really add up. So I think that the real key on that is setting the deadline and understanding what what the time requirements are as well.
Right.
I think that's an important part to consider on the deadlines.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
thank you for the
thanks.
feedback. So one of the tactics that I've used for a couple of years now in order for me to get stuff done is I use an Excel spreadsheet as my to-do list, and I started to do time estimates of how long I believe a certain task is going to take. What I find is that most of the things that I do, because I try to chip away at things, it is very rare for me to sit down and spend an hour writing an article. It's just not, I don't process well, that it does not work for me. But what I will do is I will spend 15 minutes over a couple of days and write an article. And so again, I chip away at things. I'll have items on my to-do list that this is going to take 15 minutes, this is going to take 15 minutes, but I also have items on my to-do list that this is going to take 5. And you actually had an experience this morning. Are you willing to confess?
Sure. So I had I knew that I was going to have a big project that I had to work on, and I also had a phone call scheduled with Melissa. And so at 10:15, I'm sitting there, thinking, well, I have my phone call scheduled with Melissa at 10:30. That's not enough time for me to get into this big project that I have, so I'll wait to get into that project until after I have the phone call with Melissa. And in this case, I actually wasted 15 minutes. And that's because I did not have my tasks broken out in those increments. And so because the one task that I was thinking about was going to take more time than I had available, I did nothing. And that's one of the worst things that you can do. I think what your philosophy is, by having all the tasks broken out and having a list of, oh, here's a 5-minute task, I could have looked at my clock, said, oh, I've got 15 minutes. What 5-minute tasks do I have available? I probably can't get 3 of them knocked out in 15 minutes because I have to breathe somewhere in between. But I could get 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And that's 1 or 2 tasks that I could then check off my list and make good use of my time. And more importantly, it keeps you in the frame of mind of accomplishing and doing your work, as opposed to, oh, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to step out of my work frame of mind, go in my play frame of mind for 15 minutes. Now I have to change my mind frame back around and re-engage. That takes a couple of minutes, and it's not an effective way of doing things.
On the flip side, if you looked at your tasks timed out, right? And I realize this sounds very type A. In a way, yes, it is, but it also is so freeing. And the reason I say that is because if you had looked at your time and realized you have no 5-minute tasks, it's what you get to do. You just sit there and bliss out on social media or whatever.
Then it's free.
Articles, yeah, exactly.
Then it's permitted, yeah.
There's something else about that too, though, and I don't want to, we're very active on social media, so I want to be very careful not to bite the hand that feeds us, because without that, it would be very challenging for people to understand what it is that we do, who we are.
And get a word out.
Oh, thank you for sharing the broadcast. With social media, especially if you are eating at your desk and you're online, there is not the same disconnect and break that you get from getting up and walking away and going and doing something different. And this is I'm especially aware of this right now because it is summer. I work from home and I have my office, and my son is a big video game fan. After he does all his chores in the morning, he goes and he spends time watching videos. So I'm spending a lot more time in my office than I normally would. And I'm finding that when I get in my car to go work out at the end of the day, I'm much more drained than I am when he's back in school. And it is not a testament to Dante.
Yeah.
It is because I'm taking my break and I'm still on my computer.
Yeah, and you're not really getting
a break. I'm eating, I'm getting nourishment, or I'm drinking some water or whatever that might be. Yeah. So it's a little bit of an aside, but it shows that, again, these things that are draining our time sometimes drain energy as well.
So let's try and codify some of these things so that you and people that are viewing this later can have some real takeaways. I think that you don't need to structure every minute of your day, but especially if you have routine tasks, like especially for us, we have things that we do every day. You have a list of contacts that you go reach out. I have a list of new financial advisors I go look for. We have a set of tasks that we do every day or every other day. Quantifying those and saying, how much time am I going to spend on each of those tasks? And then what are the other things that I need to do throughout the day, and about how long do they take? And again, we're not talking about micromanaging your day, but making a list of things to do so that when you have 15 minutes, You don't have to stop and think, what can I do? You can just go to the list and look it up. Right? This is one of our big things of establishing routines and habits so that we can free our brains up to be creative and not occupying them with doing the mundane stuff. So having a list of tasks with ideas of how long it's going to take to do so that you can go to that list when you have a few minutes. I think that's one of the key things.
If I can just add to that. So when you have a financial task that you keep kind of getting that uncomfortable feeling around, the critical jump is to actually get that task on that to-do list. Again, it sounds so simple. It sounds so simple, but we don't, for whatever reason, we don't tend to do those things. And so the minute it gets on your to-do list, that's one step. So then, and time it out, right? And then deadline.
And then establish the deadline, and depending on your personality, either the reward or the repercussion. You need some incentive to actually execute that deadline. And if you find yourself continually re-establishing a new deadline, I didn't get done by this time, okay, I promise I'm going to do it next week, that means that your reward or repercussion is not the right one. So if you find yourself doing that, stop, go back and look at what your reward or repercussion is, and they're not strong enough. You need to make it stronger.
If we don't want to do something, there will always be an excuse. It's just human nature. And so it is the things that you find yourself resisting, figuring out what is it going to take in order to be able to shift that. And a little $15, like in the case of our client, if she had decided that, I'm going to do this and I'm going to go out and I'm going to spend $15 on a decadent French pastry and a beautiful cup of coffee, I would have said more power to you.
Whatever works for you. It's what's going to work for you. I think the other thing that you really want to do with these is where do I want to go with this? I think I just lost my train of thought. How horrible. When you're estimating, that's what it was. When you get to the end of a time period, I've allotted myself 15 minutes for this task. Use an alarm clock, all right? And then use your cell phone.
Which I use my phone
That's
for.
fine. That's fine. It's a tool. Use an alarm clock. At the end of that 15 minutes, and I know you've had this experience, you're really on a roll. I'm going to give myself another 15 minutes to keep going. You don't have, you're not a slave to your tools. But that's a reminder at the end of 15 minutes or whatever your time allotment was, do I want to stop this? Do I want to go on with it? If you're taking a break, if you're surfing the web or doing whatever it is that you breathing or meditating or whatever, end of 15 minutes, okay, I'm done with that activity. Now I need to move on to go on to something else. So being really cognizant of that time and not being a slave to it, but making a conscious decision if you're not going to follow that and being aware of the repercussions. If I spend an extra 15 minutes on this task, that means something else doesn't get done or I'm working 15 minutes later. There are consequences for every action. So making those decisions purposefully is really key to how you can make sure that you have the time to do the things you need to do.
Along those lines, I have been spending a tremendous amount of time with the Geek Squad at Best Buy. The folks in San Carlos are fantastic, and they've really taken care of us. To one extent, I'm very proud of myself because I've taken care of a couple of things that have taken time, that have been a burden on time rather than on money. This is all full circle, I promise you. So, but it started with me not taking care of myself, and my laptop exploded on me actually at the very beginning of a Caffeine TV presentation we were supposed to do back in May. I started and my laptop exploded, and I just
and we just killed the presentation.
Killed the presentation, and my laptop spent 5 days. My laptop, my whole business is my laptop and my phone. So I had that experience, and I thought, I do not want that to happen again. And I had noticed that my husband and I, our phones they're a little bit older. We have iPhone 6s, and I had the experience in the past where my phone got so old that they weren't replacing the batteries anymore. And so I talked to the Geek Squad and realized that was going to be the case. Pretty soon the batteries for the iPhones we have were going to be going away. So I made appointments and I took both our phones in before it needed to happen. And now our phones the life of them is much longer. And I feel like I'm going to have the investment of these phones. I won't have to replace them at least for another couple of years. So I saved money. I work mostly on my laptop, but when I work with clients, I actually have a desktop with a 10 key and a big, huge screen so I can see my worksheets. That has started to slow down. And so I knew that, you know what, this is a perfect week. I'm going to be light on meetings. I'm going to go ahead and take my desktop in, which is what I did yesterday. And so I had this moment, and a big catalyst of all of this was when I had my laptop at the Geek Squad and I sat there and I went to go grab my phone to bliss out and I thought, no, this is my own punishment. And I sat down, I always keep my notebook with me, and I sat down and I wrote my monkeys list. And my monkeys list is always, what are the things in the back of my mind that are bothering me?
Yeah, monkey on your back.
Monkey on my back. And it was a long list. And on it was the things that I just told you that I've executed. And I think that often things are bothering us or we know we should do something, but because it doesn't get put down on paper, it will just continue to be an issue. And so the monkey list is something that I do. Unfortunately, it's cumulative versus me saying, oh, let's create a monkey list. And it's only 3 items and I can just knock it out.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that if you're hitting a point where you feel like everything, everything is becoming a burden or everything's becoming hard, give yourself that time to sit down instead of distracting yourself. Write it down and start to create a plan. And even if it takes you time, it took me, something started in May with my laptop, so it's taken me almost 2 months, but I should be screaming technology-wise now.
And you're knocking things off the list.
Yeah.
And the idea is, part of the idea of you have the time is taking care of small problems before they become big problems. And so
or the expensive ones.
Or expensive ones. Yeah. Kind of the same thing. Yeah. It's just that, there's lots of aphorisms out there, ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, all those things like that. But it still just comes down to the idea that if you spend 15 minutes to take care of something today, that is 3 hours so you don't have to take care of things in the future.
Yep.
Oil change. I will make a confession. Many years ago, I had a Saturn SC2. Saturn was a great car, great company. GM really screwed up by closing it down for a lot of stupid reasons. And I had this car, and I kept telling myself, I need to change oil. I kept putting it off. And I got in the car one day, and I drove about 3 blocks, and it went, and I seized the engine up. And so I had to spend about $1,200 to put a brand new engine in the car, all because I didn't change oil and check the oil on a regular basis. I just got lazy. And so again, every time you get gas, it takes an extra 30 seconds to check the oil. I didn't spend those 30 seconds, and it ended up costing me $1,200.
Yeah.
And I'm a fairly technical guy. I know how an engine works. And it was just it was just like it's perception of busyness.
That's it.
Yeah,
perception of busyness. That's good. I gotta write that down.
So again, take the time to deal with those things when they're small, so they don't become big. And you do have the time. Again, the time it takes, taking the extra 30 seconds to check the oil and the extra 5 minutes once every 6 months to put a quart of oil in is a lot less in time and money than having to buy a new engine and then be without your car for 3 or 4 days while somebody puts a new engine in. All right, so you can do that. All it really is set the list up. For me, the most critical thing is, again, what you do, having your tasks written down, so you can say, I have 10 minutes before the next phone call. What can I do in that time? I can knock a couple of these things off. We just did that this morning, or today, before we started this Caffeine TV. When we were getting ready, we said...
we followed our own advice.
Yeah, we said we have half an hour.
Yeah.
What can we do on our agenda list for our meeting after we get done with this? What can we knock off now? And we knocked off, 5, 6, 7 items. A lot of them were things like, we've done it, we've checked it off. But again, now when we do our meeting after this, we're ahead of the game.
Right.
So you have the time if you have stuff written out ahead of time so you know what you're doing and you're not having to remember and come up with it off the cuff.
I'll go back to, again, when we first started this company a long time ago, it was all about money. It was all about saving money. It was all about being purposeful with money. But again, in working one-on-one with folks, especially, clients, in the last 8 years, we've really worked with clients all over the United States. The correlation between time and money is huge. It's huge. And we've talked about it. Our next book is going to be on that very subject. We added a brand new webinar to our webinar series on that very subject. In fact, we will be talking about that in our meeting today.
Yeah.
But life is to be enjoyed, and it's all based on being purposeful with your time and being purposeful with your money. And while again, I feel like I always have to defend some of the ideas that we have. And I think that I feel that way because I'm not a naturally born organized person. And I wonder sometimes if I had heard me, like if past Melissa was listening to present Melissa, I'd be like,
yeah, nobody's that organized.
Nobody's that organized. That sounds like too much. Thank you.
Yeah. But you don't have to be super type A to do this.
Yeah.
All you have to do is
take enough pain points.
All you have to do is get a piece of paper and write down, what do I need to do today?
Yeah.
What do I need to do this week? How long does it take to do these things, so that you have, some type of a plan and something to fill in the gaps. Well, and if you're a type A person, go crazy.
Yes.
Color-coded spreadsheets, calculate things out to the minute, and you can go ahead and do everything.
Yeah.
Do what your heart your heart desires. But you don't need to. You can pick what suits you. But just having that written down in front of you so that you don't have to spend the brain power to figure out what to do next. That's the big key, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that, we're at the bottom of our half hour with you guys.
This
Thank
is
you
on
so
time?
much. Yeah,
So
thank you
we
for
want to
interacting with us.
Yeah.
Real quick, if you are watching a recording of this on YouTube, we do have our YouTube channel, and it is The Savvy Life on YouTube. If you look us up, The Savvy Life, and if you look up my last name, Tosetti, you will be able to easily find us. We want to encourage you to like and subscribe, as they do say. Also, please join us on. Oh, thank you. Join us on social media, which we talked about. Do it responsibly, though. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Connect with us on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Yep. And our website, thesavvylife.com. So all kinds of great things there.
Yep. And regarding regarding our website. So we publish an article every single week. We've been publishing articles for a very, very long time. There's a ton of content there. There are links to our previous videos there as well. But you can also subscribe to our list. It is a free weekly newsletter that we send out. And it is a list of tasks, challenges, or habits to get you to live a savvy life. Typically, there's 3 to-dos. On each list, we try to keep it simple. And thank you.
Great,
Thanks for
you.
checking it out. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining us today, guys. It's so much more fun.
Yes. It's always great to have people to talk to. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Have a great week. Happy 4th.
Happy 4th of July.
Thanks.
Thank you.